Hi, I'm Constance Duke, Director of Sustainability at Sustain.Life. This is the Week in Sustainability, where a team of practitioners and experts get together to share some of the most important issues and stories in sustainability. I'm joined today by my colleague, Nick Sontag, our Senior Manager of Sustainability, and we'll be talking all about supply chain sustainability risk today. I'll start with a recent survey from the consulting firm Efficio, which found that environmental issues are only officially in scope for 38% of procurement professionals, and social issues for 40% of them. Given that supply chain emissions far exceed direct emissions from operations for most companies, we found that to be quite surprising. Only around 30% of respondents assessed suppliers on governance, social, and environmental issues versus 63% who limit supplier assessments to traditional priorities, such as delivery capabilities and finance, for example. And in addition, more than half of the survey respondents said that suppliers weren't able to share their own emissions footprint. 46% said that incentives are aligned with meeting those traditional priorities rather than climate and other sustainability objectives. And yet, at the same time, regulatory pressure is increasing, especially in the EU, with the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Act, which was adopted in 2022, and more recently, Germany's Supply Chain Due Diligence Act, which went into effect last month. Violations of Germany's new law can result in fines as high as 2% of annual revenues and even prevent companies from being awarded government contracts in the future. Both laws requires that companies disclose their approach to environmental and human rights risk management, including preventive and corrective actions. Companies who already prepare annual sustainability reports and have active supplier engagement programs are likely to be in pretty good shape to comply with such new requirements. For companies who haven't started that process, there are lots of reasons to consider doing so now. Even for less regulated US companies, having to report supply chain emissions is only a matter of time, and setting supply chain targets is already best practice. But beyond being compliant and meeting reporting requirements, there are real physical risks that need to be addressed, and engaging with suppliers will make risk mitigation easier as well. So with that, I will pass it on to Nick to talk about why supply chain sustainability risk management is so critical, as well as some options for mitigating it. Take it away, Nick.
Thank you, Constance. A couple of recent studies on physical climate risks have revealed that the vast majority of suppliers in areas that are expected to see increases in extreme weather are not actually prepared for such events. A Harvard Business Review study found that only about 11% of suppliers in the US, China, and Taiwan are prepared for weather-related disruptions, yet half of US suppliers and over 90% of Chinese and Taiwanese suppliers have already experienced some form of climate volatility. So what are these disruptions we're talking about? They include everything from tornadoes, heat waves, wildfires, flooding, and most importantly, hurricanes. In particular, the frequency of supply chain disrupting hurricanes in these areas is expected to quadruple in the next 15 years. The damage caused by these events lead to cost spikes in labor, energy, and logistics, in addition to just manufacturing downtime itself. And as a reminder, we're talking about supply chain risks. So even if your own operations might be safe or insulated from these disruptions, you likely have suppliers who are not. So what can you do? Well, this is where TCFD comes in, the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. The guidance from this framework is designed to help you assess your own climate-related risks, and you can also use it to gauge the level of risk within your supply chain via supplier questionnaires. When it comes to actual mitigation strategies, those are all going to be specific to your own business and the specific risks that you face. But in general, buffering your inventory so you have reserves in the event of a disruption, as well as maintaining close communication with your suppliers, are both key.
Thank you, Nick. I think close communication is key, and I hope that we'll see more meaningful engagement and collaboration with suppliers to avert and mitigate severe disruption in supply chains. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today, and we will share more sustainability news stories with you next week.